Well, welcome YouTubers to the Shade Tree Mechanics Garage. This is my 1956 Plymouth, and it has a little bit of garage rash showing and all the dust. And if you're wondering what is propping up the hood, in technical terms, in Kentucky, that's known as a tobacco stick. Formerly used when farmers were growing tobacco. They would use the tobacco sticks to help gather up and sort the leaves. Anyway, enough history. This is my 56 Plymouth, and I have been working on it. Well, I'll tell you, I had something interesting happen. I was getting it ready, going to get it out and wash it for the first time this year, obviously. And my brake pedal went straight to the floor, which is not good. And I heard no liquid. You know, it wasn't like I was pumping the liquid out. There was no brake fluid. Took the cap off the reservoir, and it was just about bone dry, as you might expect. Now, none of the lines are broken. And so I ended up piecing it together that and I had seen this a couple of times in the past couple of years. I'd seen drops of brake fluid at the end of the master cylinder. And I wasn't really sure where that was coming from, but it seemed so insignificant that I didn't worry about it. It wasn't a hose. Where the brake fluid was actually collecting was at the brake light switch. On the old 56 Plymouth, as a lot of cars did up until the mid-60s, and maybe even later, they used a pressure switch that screwed into the master cylinder. And it was actually the brake fluid pressure in the master cylinder that actuated your brakes. Unlike, well, even my 1955 Chevy had a mechanical switch on the brake pedal inside the car. But this uses a pressure switch. And I finally deduced that the pressure switch on the old Plymouth had been leaking for a very long time, and it's a little scary because I realized that my brakes were probably just about out of fluid the last couple of times I drove her last year, and over the winter the rest slowly leaked out. So anyway, so then it was time to see what I could do about the switch. Now, this is the original switch right here. If I can get it. Well, not much to look at. It's kind of the color of everything else greasy under the hood of the Plymouth. 2 pins, which is pretty standard. Now, something I did not know until I got the replacement, and I have a auto parts store here, and it's my favorite because unlike going to one of the chains that I won't mention, the guys that work here in a traditional auto parts store know their crap about cars. You go in and ask them a question, and if one of them can't answer it, another one can, or they'll know where to send you. So, and I was telling them, I said, I've got to change this switch. And my fear was that this pressure switch was going to be a booger to get loose. After all, it's only been in there since, 1956. What could go wrong? You know, and the master cylinder looks like just about every other 70-year-old master cylinder. It's rusty as all get out. Anyway, the guy took me down their selection of tools, and he showed me this. This is a special sending unit socket designed to fit those brake switches and other funky looking sending units. On the little card that came with this, it mentioned that it also worked for some sending units. Anyway, I thought, well, I don't know. I wasn't sure this thing was going to work. Looked kind of funky inside. Well, damned if it didn't work great. It was perfect, exactly what I needed. I removed the switch without a hitch and installed the new one. Now, the other thing that I had a problem with was the wiring. I could not, even after I was checking the master cylinder switch, this switch to function, and using my voltometer, I could not get it to close with pressure. I even tried bleeding. Maybe there was some air trapped in the passageway for the pressure, but no such luck. So I put the new one in and then tested it under pressure. It worked great. Then I tried to hook up the wiring. Well, for some reason, still no brake lights. And so I decided to jump 12 volts directly to the wire that goes back to the tail lights and the brake lights, and that worked great. Now the DC to this switch comes from the headlight switch, and it goes to several other places. It's just a 12-volt supply line that's there all the time, because you obviously want brake lights no matter if you've got headlights or parking lights on as well. But I had nothing, so let me show you what I had to do. And I don't know how well you can see it, but you can see that's my master cylinder, the new switch, and oh, here's this. It's the old wire that's part of the cable. I just need to cut it off, cut that guy off. I ran a new 12-volt line, and you can follow it down to the starter relay. If you can get this stuff out of the way a little bit. So I just put it on the battery side. There's the battery of the starter relay. And then I found out some other distressing news while I was down here with the starter relay. This is the DC cable that goes down to the starter. Well, this is probably original, and it had been, it carries a lot of current. And the insulation from here down to here had basically been baked and brittle and broke. It was completely bare from there down to here. So actually the real fix is to replace it with a new cable, and that'll come. But because I want to get it on the road and drive it some before winter, I wrapped it securely with electrical tape, and I'll keep an eye on it. So, you know, there's lots of compromises here. The wiring on the old Plymouth leaves a lot to be desired. If you look at some of the wiring job here, all the wires were replaced with black wires, and very small gauge wiring too at that. And I run into that also up here. This is the terminal strip that helps distribute power, and it's kind of a mess. So one thing of course about a project car, an old car, is there's no shortage of things to work on. Anyway, the important thing is the Plymouth now has operating brake lights and just needs a bath. All right, well, that's going to do it for this installation of the Shade Tree Mechanics Garage. Go to your good, knowledgeable auto parts store if you're looking for a socket for that sending unit, for the brake light switch or an oil sending unit. It may save the day for you, like it did me. All right, you all have a great day. See you on the road.